All right, we are on with my friend Will Shields. He is a Hall of Famer. He is not only a Hall of Famer, but it started off in high school in Oklahoma and then went into college in Nebraska, where he was an Outland Trophy winner, which is pretty amazing because it's four positions. It's under consideration for both guards and both tackles, correct?
Yep,
Will?
exactly.
And then played in the league for 14 years, which is unheard of. I don't know of too many people that I've ever encountered that played in the league that long. But played in the NFL for 14 years. He is a Pro Football Hall of Famer and entrepreneur. And Will, I think when you and I first met, you were still actively playing. But when did you get into the idea of being a business owner? Because I feel like ever since I met you, you've been looking to be a business owner, even while playing.
Well, I think there's a lot of little things that I was doing while I was playing. When I started building foundation work and doing different things, I always wanted to look at and see what's next. What do I have to, where can I go from here? Where can I build out? What can I do next to figure it out? And sometimes I think it was good, and other times it might not be as good. They tell you, take your time, be patient, learn,
Right.
find out what you love, and then sort of jump into those things, because then it's for love and passion and not for a revenue stream, which is
Right.
always that hard determining point.
I know. And sometimes people forget that process is a process, and you have to experiment, you have to try things and look at things. So talk a little bit about that from the aspect of when did you start looking at those things, and what types of things did you look into?
Well, when I was playing, I was just sort of doing different things. I had my foundation, the Will to Succeed, that we were doing a lot of work in the community, trying to figure out how to sort of, shrink the gaps between, the social enterprise and how do people, function? How do we become a little better, do some different things? My first business venture, I should say, probably started when I actually owned a technology company that built websites.
Oh,
So
wow.
we were right there before 9/11. We were building websites and trying to figure out, selling websites across the board, everything else. And then we had a little travel company that was built off of that. And but once 9/11 hit, all the travel companies were sort of phased out. So
Right.
that was my first learning curve, of being an investor. And but what the cool thing about it got me connected to technology. And so I used to build websites myself, and have all these different names that you'd procure for other events and things like that down the road. And that sort of got me started with trying to figure out what was next. And so then from there, had sort of dabbled into a little bit of the into retail services of bringing in different, what do you call it? Mattresses and stuff like that, partnering with
Yeah.
different companies. So we had a storefront from Denmark that was bringing in these mattresses and doing different things like that. So my second venture was there, trying to figure out, the retail of bringing in furniture and other things from other countries. And so it was unique, part of the learning curve, as they say.
Yeah. Well, international business, that's you're biting off a big thing. That's not exactly easy.
No, no,
What were
especially.
some of the biggest things you learned through trying to be an importer, if you will, of goods?
Well, one thing I think is the pipeline. You have to make sure you have the right pipeline that's coming in. And then, of course, that's the first thing you learn is basically make sure not only do you reread contracts a couple of different times over, make sure you have a good lawyer to read contracts back and
Right.
forth over and over. And that's actually starting back to your own NFL career as far as contracts and what's written in there and what they are and everything else. Make sure you know all the rules and who can do what, when, and where, and all of that. I think that to me is one big message I'll tell guys from the beginning. Even the guy you trust, have a secondary guy to watch them to make sure that that all the things are done the right way.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great. So, you came into the league in over a 14-year period of time. I sort of glanced over and didn't mention the fact of your stability. What was it, 231 games that you started
Yeah.
consecutively?
Yeah, I played in quite a few games back to back to back, so it was fun. So I didn't. The only game I didn't start and play or start in was my first game, and
Wow.
that was when I came in and my left guard got hurt. The right guard had to flip the left guard, and then I moved into the right guard spot and got an opportunity and kept that position from that point forward. So sort of one of those things of being a little bit crazy, selfish, as well as lucky all at the same time,
Yeah.
to always find a way to get back into the starting lineup each week. And that was one thing that was sort of, I think unique of being able to say that you were able to start every game as a pro during the regular season.
I just cannot imagine because I'm sure you have one game per year where your body feels a whole, completely healthy, and that's the first game, and then, then it goes from there. But what kind of mindset did you have to be able to persevere like that?
Well, you have to think when I was playing at that point, we had 6 weeks of training camp and we would go up to River Falls, Wisconsin. So we would travel away from the house, to separate yourself and get your mind ready for football. But I am a football junkie. I've been, that way since I was a little kid. So when we were going off for training camp and everything else, it was like going for vacation for me. Like, okay, now it's time to go play football. So I was excited about being able to get ready to play for the next season. I was, so I would take maybe 2 to 3 weeks off. I did have one summer I took 4 weeks off during the off season, and then you start back at it again. Not necessarily just doing football drills, but you start working on your body and doing, other things outside of football, in the pool and bike workouts and stuff like that were all different than just football related, because that football all year long could be tedious. So you do other things to sort of build up to it, a lot of racquetball and basketball and stuff like that, just to, work on different parts of your body, but also still stay in pretty good shape.
Yeah, no doubt. But man, I can't wrap my mind around it. This is my 29th season helping NFL players, and I think you're a unicorn, my friend. I just don't know anybody like you.
Yeah, and what's really cool about it is that, you start learning things as you go through it, and you first start off and you go, okay, well, and you learn how to get your body in shape and keep it in shape. But then on top of that, you start adding things. You start adding a massage therapist and, during the season, then you add a chiropractor. Then you find out, okay, they can, you start doing needles and chi and all these other little things to try to keep your body at least feeling decent. And that's one thing that's unique about it. You find out, you really know the ins and out of what your body is doing and how it's going and how to build it up to get ready for the next season. And I think that's what makes it unique. If you can figure those things out, I call it the tenderizing zone. You tenderize your body during the pre-build up to the regular season. And that's what makes it hard about, I guess, today's athletes and those guys, is that they never go through that true tenderizing point where you get your body to a point to where it just hurts anyway. And so then you don't have those injuries, because it's not something that's, oh, I'm finally running full speed and I'm finally hitting something at full speed. We had quite a few weeks that we worked our way into it and sort of built that continuity into your body, but also in your mindset of what you had to fight your way through.
I've wondered often, not being a football player, right, to all the things that have changed through the CBA and shorter training seasons and so forth. What you see a lot of injuries these days, and I know guys are bigger, stronger, faster, it seems like every year. But do you think that there's some aspect of shortened training seasons that are training camps that are causing some of these injuries?
Well, I think that pays a point into it. It just depends on, your off season and how well do you get your body ready for that point. I mean, before there wasn't an off season, there would be, before the 80s and 90s, there weren't an off season at all. The guys had to go to work. So they went and worked. They worked jobs, they were working at GM and all these other things. And then they got off from work to actually go play a game called football, which was really unique within itself. So they
Right.
used that 6 weeks to get themselves in shape and do all the other stuff. They didn't know what an OTA was, official training activity. Those things didn't exist.
Right.
Where it became a full-time job, where beforehand it was seen as a part-time job. But they used that 6 weeks to try to get guys in shape to a certain point so that they could play the game. And I get it, and I understand that it has changed, it has moved forward. But also within that moving forward, you still have to realize that it is a violent game. There's still contact. There's still going to be collisions. There's still going to be those pieces that you have to train your body for, especially being an offensive and defensive lineman. You technically hit each other every snap. If you're doing your job, and then if you're not hitting somebody, you got a coach yelling at you. They call it putting in work. That means you better go hit somebody during that play because you're not going to get any good grades if you don't.
That's incredible. So we talk a little bit about the mindset of what it takes for you to play 231 consecutive games. I keep saying it because it just boggles my mind. But how did you use that same mindset in business? What things did you take across from playing in the NFL to being an entrepreneur? What types of mindsets and things that you learned through football did you take across?
Well, I think you take a little bit of everything. You sort of build into your resiliency of what you've learned and how to learn and do different things. You do learn that every day is a different day. You do know that you have to learn new things, but it's almost like you're starting over. You're starting over from day one, even though you've put in all the reps as far as a player, but you haven't put the reps in as a business owner. And so you're a baby. You're starting all over again of, what is that basic rep? What is that basic thing you need to know? And that learning curve is huge. And sometimes we jump into things not knowing how big that learning curve is going to be because, we've been focused on being on the field and doing what we do there. So the time spent that you've been doing that, you've lost some of the time as far as becoming a better entrepreneur. But what's really cool is you have the knowledge base of the background of all the coaches and all the different people and all the owners and different things that you've been around and that you've seen. And you learn from that. You learn from parts of that to try to bring those different things. And you learn what teamwork really should look like compared to what it is as you move forward. And I think that's one thing that you really try to build on.
So, speaking of mentors, were there some mentors that really helped you along the way in your business career?
There has been, as they say, there could be good and bad mentors, but it's across the board of you learning from every aspect of it. And I think that's the most important piece. You learn from different things and different people. You've had those people that sort of taken you under their wing and go, hey, maybe you should be thinking about this and maybe you should work on that. And then there's others that, have basically, said, you might want to go talk to someone else because I can't help you in this situation. And to me, those are the best ones because they already know what they don't know. They're willing to go ahead and say, hey, you need to go get help and move on and find out from someone else. But there has been, some people that I've sort of followed and shadowed and talked to, and right now it's sort of interesting to think about the day and age where when I first started would have been thinking about businesses, or even if I were to start straight out of college, that would have been in 92, 93. And that would have been basically 4 years after the cell phone first was created. 4 or 5 years, somewhere around there. Where now everything is sort of sent to you into your phone day in and day out. You can actually put in specific algorithms and they will just send you specific information on leadership and business tactics and what you should know and all of those things. And that's what makes it so unique going from the era that we were in to now of all the knowledge bases. Even when I was playing, the internet wasn't as big or easy to get to as it is now. And so that was also a learning curve. So every day is a new learning for me, even as a person that's a little older and been through a few different businesses and done some different things. there's still that daily learn that you have to have. And I think that's what's really cool about, where we are as, as a group. And you got to open yourself up to it and say, yeah, I don't know it all. There's a lot of new things I need to go to try to figure out what's next and what I'm going to love to do.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about what you're doing now in business, and you're in the banking business, correct?
I was in the banking business.
Okay.
Basically, I was in banking for about 10 years. We took a small bank from a little small town and brought it into Kansas to the area and build it out. And then we ended up getting purchased by a bigger bank and then set out for 2 years. And then we purchased another bank that had 3 branches and expanded it to 5, then now to 7. And then now we're we're about 7 at about 7 branches right now.
So currently, you're now part of the NFL Legends community and the director of the South Central area. Is that correct?
Well, they actually just sort of changed my position. So I'm actually working with all 32 teams, and we are developing what we call the onboarding for our guys that are 0 to 5-year-olds. You sort of talk about it as babies, but our newly retired guys.
Okay.
Helping them transition out, but also getting them on board to understand that there's certain things that you're going to have to do right now to get ready for your future. And great. Basically build that in of, I know some guys are going, well, I want to take some time off. Well, it depends on where you are. It depends on where you are mentally, where you are financially, where you are, how do you know where your next navigation piece goes? So it's myself, and I have 2 other guys that work with me to sort of help, even though there's still 20 of us or 22 of us that work across the board, but they've sort of given us the task of being able to help those guys that are currently out from 0 years to 5 years to sort of get them ready for the true transition, which is a hard thing to do. It's hard to figure out what to do next, where to go next, because I think most people have that misnomer that, once you retire from the NFL, you're set for life, or you're this, that, and the other. And they don't realize that we're all at different levels, levels of life and different levels of understanding, but there's still a lot of life left for us to do. And we have to prepare for it, and we have to move forward, and we have to grow. And I think that's part of that process of transitioning out.
Yeah, it is. And I applaud the NFL for putting you in that role, because, as you know, a lot of guys that step away from the game, or the game steps away from them, I should say, most likely, is that, they sort of get lost in that time period for quite a few years. Where they're still maybe working out or trying out for new teams and so forth. So it's awesome that they have somebody like you to reach out and extend the resources that are available to them.
Yeah, that process of change is always hard, and you try to explain it as every process, every time you change is different. And that change is going to happen a couple of different times in life, not just the one from the NFL, but you've put in so much work into getting there and trying to be a part of that elite group of individuals that when that transition starts to happen, that's when that game plan comes into, what's next? What do I do with all this? Where do I move forward? How do I build out what's next? The question is, should I be an entrepreneur or not? Or should I not be an entrepreneur? Should I just, there's a lot of things in life that you can love to do. And if you find something you love, that's what you should be doing.
Absolutely. And you're playing right into my next event, which is November 8th in Dallas. It's called the Bridge Conference, and bringing in my buddy Eddie Mason and his wife Sonia to help people with the psychological part of the transition. But we have major employers that are going to come in and actually interview them that day, along with entrepreneurial resources for guys that are looking for it. So awesome. I love extending these free type of opportunities, for these national, employment opportunities for guys to transition and see what, talk to the companies to figure out not only what they want to do, but maybe what they don't want to do, which is just equally as valuable.
And that's very important for you to figure out what you don't want to do for the rest of your life, because it's that hard decision. It's that hard choice. And sometimes, just like anything else, that job you had when you were younger that you didn't like might be the one you have to do later in life. I started off as a newspaper boy. Was the first job I ever had, throwing newspapers with my mom and collecting and dealing with, adults and all of that good stuff. And then down the road, I ended up owning a fitness center for like 12 years of working with people and training and having, I have a staff of at one point over 100 people that you're
Wow.
all trying to build up. I call it 240,000 square foot of training, which was a lot of different pieces and a lot of different things moving, even to a point to where you cut it into divisions. I had 15 different divisions inside of one company. So you learn from those things and you try to, build out the best you can do and go from there. But also do it in a very smart and opportunistic way to benefit the person that's putting it together. If you're going to be a person that's going to have to put money in, know the safeguards of it. Know how to understand what you're putting in, how much you're putting in. And if you're a guy that's playing still, you can always put away a little bit on the side to go, hey, this will be my money that I'll use to invest in, other companies, other things, other opportunities. But it's just a small percentage that you can build in over there. And then, hey, once you get out and you try it, once you go through that revenue, it's time to find something else to do it. You can't dip into certain things. So, it's easy to put it's not easy, but it's hard for you to put those safeguards in now, because this is when you're making your money. This is when you're making your cash. So you do need to put safeguards in and put in opportunity zone across the board of knowing, hey, this is what I'm keeping for the rest of my life. This is what I'm keeping for what I want to invest in. And this is what I'm going to do with for today.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you obviously learned that along the way. And it's awesome that you're in the spot that you are, because you've experienced a lot. 68 Fitness became a huge fitness facility, as you talked about. And, if you were to now advise your younger self, what different decisions would you make along the way?
Well, I think some of it was, there's been, real estate deals that you've been a part of, which you think you've learned things from. Even in the fitness business itself, you learn that, expansion is slow going, and maybe you should roll everything out in small bits and pieces instead of taking such big bites. We ended up having two big facilities at the same time, where probably should have just had one. Just had the one facility, start from there, build it, work on it, see how it works, everything else, before you jump into a second building and do those different things. And I think, to me, that would have been something that would have been very beneficial as far as a business person of expansion, knowing that, hey, if you're going to expand, make sure you do it at the right place at the right time, and you've already set aside revenue to build it out. And that to me comes from that experience of, oh yeah, man, this is cool. There's, you have partners, you have different people that are with you. Oh, I think it'd be great if we had this over here compared to that, and do this and do that. Also make sure you understand the equal and opportunity of each person. So if everybody that's put in the beginning revenue is not willing to put in the same revenue from that point forward, it's probably time for all of you to walk away and disappear from each other, because you're in the business together, not somebody else picking up the pieces for everyone else. Because I guarantee you'll be the one that they'll be trying to let sit and hold the bag if you're the one that's willing to put in extra or what have you. So
Yeah.
those are things that are really, straight up learning, is that the simple fact of it is that you got to understand who's doing what, when, and where. And it's okay. Oh yeah, well, such and such is going to run it. Yeah, no, make sure you have an accountant behind the accountant. Make sure you have a person that's looking at the books. And yes, you need to have multiple people looking at it, just because the simple fact that somebody can make a mistake and miss something. But that's why you would rather pay a little extra to have other eyes looking on it so that you don't have those mistakes.
There's a price and then there's a cost, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. So, given your role, what are the areas that you're most focused on? Are they really focused on helping the person get to the next, or really helping the person understand the benefits of what they've already earned?
Well, the cool thing about it is I get a chance to find people where they are.
Okay.
Whether they are happy with where they are and moving on to the next level, then I go, okay, where do you want to go and how do you want to get there? The ones that are, because you don't leave the league always willing. It could be an injury. It could be, hey, I got released or I got this. So it's not about the league. It's about what you've earned at that point. And go, look, it's not about what you think of X, Y, and Z. These are the things that were put here to take care of you, to help move forward, to help you build out whatever life you want to build out next. That's what it's for. And so you have to sort of meet everybody where they're at. If it's a business person, I'll send them to you, man. I'll be like, hey, did you hear about my guy? You need to talk to him so he can walk you through some of the different things that you are looking to do, and maybe give you some insight as to how to build out what you want to do. But also, I think it's interesting for us as a group that there should be, I call it the true roadmap for all of us. And it should be a cool roadmap that where every NFL player should be connected to one another one way or another. So if I am driving from Lawton, Oklahoma down here to Dallas, Texas, I could stop by one of my guys. They might not have been my teammate, but it's a player that I know that has a barbecue shop, and I want to stop by and give him business because I know where he's at. I can find him. Or when I get down here, hey, I want to buy boots. I know a guy that does boot companies, or a guy that does cleaning, or, our network should be built just as strong as anything else across the country. And I think that's something that would be very important to be able to do. Find a way to get us all to work together, regardless of what that is. Hey, if I'm doing golf tournaments, I need somebody that's going to help me build cool gift bags for my players. I got to be able to find that. I got to be able to be a part of that. So I think, to me, those are all the different things that you sort of try to figure out, work with, all the way down to the simple thing of a guy that calls and says, hey, I need to just know how to get on the app, and find some of the different things inside of our app that's going to help them figure out what's next. And for me, the resources are what they are. And I don't care if they come from the PA, or if they come from alumni, or they come from the league. I just want them to use it and to get the use out of it as much as possible. And then, of course, I catch my guys that I want to always, the first thing I do talk to them about is health and wellness. Hey, have you got your checkup? Hey, have you went and did this? Hey, have you went and got your brain and body? Have you done all these things? Because our health is one piece that's always going to be in play because of what we did for a living. We use this thing up here as a battering ram quite a bit. So we need to make sure that that battering ram's strong enough to hold up and do what it needs to do for the next 30 to 40 years, not just the next 5 or 6. So I always talk about it. Hey, man, did you go do this? Did you go get your checkup? Do you have all these things in place? And even our guys that's only been in for a year. Hey, did you go use the Player Care Foundation screening in your neighborhood of where it is? If not, there's 10 of them. Let's find one near you and get you in just to make sure. So we can have that beginning baseline for the health and wellness piece for not only for themselves, but for their families.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. And, you talked about finding those people that have restaurants in different cities or different businesses. For all of you guys that are business owners, the NFL does have the NFL Legends Business Directory, which I'm responsible for. So if you don't know how to get on it and you need to put a business in there, please reach out to me and I'll walk you through it. But it's an amazing resource, but it's only as good as every other resource that's out there. You have to use it.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So from aspect of as you see things, a lot of visibility at this point of your career to see the newer guys that are getting out of the league, some of the guys who have been out of the league for quite a while. What do you think are some of the biggest resources that guys are missing out on?
Well, for the current guys is basically for those guys to be able to use the DHN network if it's they could use that on a regular basis, but also the mental piece of it. To be able to just talk to someone about anything, any issue whatsoever, it's protected. It's just a simple fact of being able to get it out. As I said before, we played a violent sport. We were on the field. We play you hit, you do this, you do that. How do we make sure that we can work all those things out on the other side? Because that used to be our outlet. So do we go, what is the next piece that we actually build into that just as a safety precaution for ourselves to make sure that the mental piece is in place across the board. And I think that's one piece that's very hard for all of us as men, as people to admit that, yes, there are some days that, I just need to vent, just need to talk about different things. And that's okay. And that's part of the process for us to sort of find a way to sort of decompress ourselves out of that mindset of what we did to whatever our next mindset's going to be as we move forward.
Yeah, and talk about, it's been a little bit since you transitioned out of the league, but what were the biggest challenges you faced? Just walking away from quite honestly a very violent game. You talk about the number of collisions you had in any given day, but what were some of the biggest challenges you faced?
For me, it was always that built of time management of, you're on a schedule. I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to work out. I'm going to go lift. After I lift, I have breakfast. After breakfast, I have meetings. And then I go to practice. So you're on that regimented scale, and it's a scale for success. So how do you recreate that after it's done and no one else is helping you build that out for yourself? And how do you use that on a regular basis? And that's another piece of it, of time management, of how do I manage the best time I could be to be the best person I could be on my next stage in life, whatever that is. To me, that's part of that transition piece. And I'll just say this, you're forever transitioning. Once you've done something for so long and you've built it in, you're forever transitioning from one thing to the next, to the next thing. And that's where the mindset changes, is that so every day I've got to learn something and be better or do better and to keep transitioning to whatever that next butterfly is going to be. But we have to have that mindset of, hey, I can't be stuck stagnant sitting in a place because it's hard to figure out what that next purpose is going to be. And that purpose driven thing is a hard thing. But that's where you want to be. You want to find out, what is my next purpose? What am I going to build? What am I going to do next? Internally, externally, will I try to be a better father? Will I, be a better son? Will I be a better husband? Or will I just be a better guy? Either way, or person. And those are all different avenues that you can go as far as your transitioning goes. And you don't have to pick them all at once. But you can just pick one. Just start with one and then sort of build your way from there. And then you can always try to find someone else. And that's also the camaraderie piece is a tough thing. Being around the guys and being able to challenge somebody and know that, okay, it's fun banter. It's part of the process of what you've been used to doing. So they have to I think most guys need to realize that there's plenty of resources out there to help, wherever you are, whatever you need help with. There's a process and procedure, and make sure you utilize your resources and don't feel embarrassed about it. Don't feel ashamed about it. We're all going through sort of the same processes. We have good days. We have bad days. We have days that we're trying to figure out, what's going on. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. We've all lost dollars in deals. That's for sure. Not everybody's hit 100% home runs. We just want to hit singles. We just want to make sure that we are not losing at all if we start to work on certain things. you know, pick out your little bit, do those little pieces. And yeah, you're not going to win them all. We're not going to win them all. And don't be embarrassed about it, because we've all lost somewhere in business and everything else. And I think that's the hard part. You know, we don't want to show up and say, dude, I had a terrible deal. And believe you me, I've had terrible deals. It's happened.
Yes.
So it's, you know, and what it is just don't have a terrible deal that puts you into dire straits on the other side. And that's where you have people like us that can help you walk through it. Use your, you know, we have those background checks. We have all kinds of things that are in place. And regardless if it's perfect or not, but at least go through the scenario of trying to figure out everything you can as you're moving forward. Because, you know, I'm the first to admit, don't know it all. Don't plan to know it all. But we're willing to try to help each other find it out.
Yeah, it is true. You have to be careful of those people who's winning or experts in everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the whole thing about it. And for those guys that have businesses that are struggling across the board, usually locally there's a group called SCORE that you can utilize, and they'll come in and analyze your business. They'll look at it. They'll tell you, hey, they'll give you frank ideas of what you can and can't do and what you should do. Sometimes we'll listen. Sometimes we won't. But they will do the best that they can do. And it's all people that have owned businesses, and they've all been through it. So, and they do it, and they do a good job, and they try to help you figure out what's next for you if you are in those situations that you're truly not sure of what to do and when to do and how to do whatever's going on next.
Yeah, the beautiful part about SCORE is they're part of the U.S. Small Business Administration, and they are free of charge because you've already paid for it through your tax dollars. So they're an amazing free resource. So I totally agree with you. They're a great group to use, and they're all across the country.
Yeah.
Well, Will Shields, my friend, I appreciate you taking time to be on with us and share your wisdom, insights, experience. It's really valuable time. So thank you, my friend.